Chapter 5. You ready? All right, let's do it. Suddenly, I became aware that the room was stuffy, so stuffy that I was almost stifled. No wonder. The room was small, far too small to receive so many visitors at one time. Ever since midnight, the visitors had been pouring in. Among them were people that I had known, people that I had hated, admired, forgotten. As I let my eyes wander about the room, I realized that all those who had contributed to my formation, to the formation of my permanent identity, were there. Some of them were familiar, but I could not pin a label upon them. There were names without faces or faces without names. And yet I knew that at some point in my life had crossed theirs. My father was there, of course, and my mother, and the beggar, and the grizzled master. The English soldiers of the convoy we had ambushed at Gadara were there also, and around them, friends and brothers and comrades, some of them out of my childhood, others that I had seen live and suffer and hope and curse at Buchenwald and Auschwitz. Alongside my father, there was a boy who looked strangely like myself, as I had been before the concentration camps, before the war, before everything. My father smiled at him, and the child picked up the smile and sent it to me over the multitude of heads which separated us. Now I understood why the room was so stuffy. It was too small to hold so many people at a time. I forced a passage through the crowd until I came to the little boy and thanked him for the smile. I wanted to ask him what all these people were doing in the room, but on second thought, I saw that this would be discourteous towards my father. Since he was present, I should address my question to him. Father, why are all these people here? My mother stood beside him, looking very pale, and her lips tirelessly murmured, "Poor little boy, poor little boy." Father, I repeated, answer me. What are you all doing here? His large eyes, in which he had so often seen the sky open up, were looking at me, but he did not reply. I turned around and found myself face to face with the rabbi, whose beard was more grizzled than ever. Master, I said, what has brought all these people here tonight? Behind me, I heard my mother whisper, "Poor little boy, my poor little boy." Well, master, I repeated, answer me, I implore you. But he did not answer either. Indeed, he did not even, he seemed to have not heard my question, and his silence made me afraid. As I had known him before, he was always present in my hour of need. Then his silence had been reassuring. Now I tried to look into his eyes, but there were two globes of fire, two suns that burned my face. I turned away and went from one visitor to another, seeking an answer to my question, but my presence struck them dumb. Finally, I came to the beggar, who stood head and shoulders above them all, and he spoke to me quite spontaneously. "This is a night of many faces," he said. I was sad and tired. "Yes," I said wearily, "this is a night of many faces, and I should like to know the reason why. If you are the one I think you are, enlighten and comfort me. Tell me the meaning of these looks, this muteness, these presences. Tell me, I beseech you, for I can endure them no longer." He took my arm, gently pressed it, and said, "Do you see that little boy over there?" He pointed to the boy who looked like myself as I had been. "Yes, I see him," I replied. "He will answer all your questions," said the beggar. "Go and talk to him." Now I was quite sure that he was not a beggar. Once more I elbowed my way through the crowd of ghosts and arrived, panting with exhaustion, at the young boy's side. "Tell me," I said beseechingly, "what are you doing here? And all the others?" His eyes, he opened his eyes wide in astonishment. "Don't you know?" he said. I confessed that I did not know. "Tomorrow a man is going to die, isn't he?" "Yes," I said. "At dawn tomorrow. And you're going to kill him, aren't you?" "Yes, that's true. I have been charged with his execution." "And you don't understand, do you?" "No. But it's all quite simple," he exclaimed. "We are here to be present at the execution. We want to see you carry it out. We want to see you turn into a murderer. That's natural enough, isn't it?" "How is it natural? What concern is the killing of John Dawson to you?" "You are the sum total of all that we have been," said the youngster who looked like my former self. "In a way, we are the ones to execute John Dawson, because you can't do it without us. Now, don't you see?" I was beginning to understand. An act so absolute as that of killing involves not only the killer, but as well those who have formed him. In murdering a man, I was making them murderers. "Well," said the boy, "do you see?" "Yes, I see," I said. Poor boy," murmured my mother, whose lips were now as gray as the old master's hair. "He's hungry," said Gideon's voice unexpectedly. I had not heard him come back up the stairs. Saints have a disconcertingly noiseless way. They walk, eat, laugh, and pray all without making a sound. Impossible, I protested. He can't be hungry, I was thinking. He's going to die, and a man who's going to die can't be hungry. He said so himself, Gideon insisted, with a shade of emotion in his voice. Everyone was staring at me. Alana had stopped crying, Joab was no longer examining his nails, and Gad looked weary. All the ghosts, too, seemed to be expecting something of me, a sign perhaps, or a cry. Does he know? I asked Gideon. Yes, he knows. And after a moment, he added, I told him. How did he react? It was important for me to know the man's reaction. Was the news a shock? Had he stayed calm or protested his innocence? He smiled, said Gideon, and he said he already knew. His stomach had told him. And he said he was hungry? Gideon hid his twitching hands behind his back. Yes, that's what he said. He said he was hungry and that he had a right to a good last meal. Gad laughed, but the tone of his laugh was hollow. Typically English, he remarked, the stiff upper lip. His remark hung over our heads in midair. No one opened up to receive it. My father shot me a hard glance as if to say, a man is going to die and he's hungry. Might as well admit it, said Gad. The English have iron digestions. No one paid any attention to this remark either. I felt a sudden stab of pain in my stomach. I had not eaten all day. Alana got up and went into the kitchen. I'll fix him something to eat, she declared. I heard her moving about, slicing a loaf of bread, opening the icebox, starting to make coffee. In a few minutes, she came back with a cup of coffee in one hand and a plate in the other. This is all I could find, she said. A cheese sandwich, some black coffee. There's no sugar, not much of a meal, but it's the best I can do. And after several seconds of silence, she asked, who's going to take it down? The boy standing beside my father stared hard at me. His stare had a voice which said, go on, take him something to eat. He's hungry, you know. No, I responded, not I. I don't want to see him. Above all, I don't want to see him eat. I want to think of him later on as a man who never ate. I wanted to add that I had cramps in my stomach, but I realized that this was unimportant. Instead, I said, I don't want to be alone with him. Not now. We'll go with you, said the little boy. It's wrong to hold back food from a man who's hungry. You know that. Yes, I knew. I had always given food to the hungry. You, beggar, you remember. Didn't I offer you bread? But tonight it's different. Tonight I can't do it. That's true, said the little boy, picking up the train of my reflections. Tonight is different, and you are different also, or at least you're going to be. But that has nothing to do with the fact that a man's hungry and must have something to eat. But he's going to die tomorrow, I protested. What's it matter whether he dies with a full stomach or an empty one? For the time being, he's alive, the child said sententiously. My father nodded in acquiescence, and all the others followed his example. He's alive and hungry and refused to give him anything to eat. All these heads, nodding like the tops of black trees, made me shudder. I wanted to close my eyes, but I was ashamed. I couldn't close my eyes in the presence of my father. Very well, I said resignedly. I accept. I'll take him something to eat. As if obeying the baton of an invisible conductor, the nodding heads were still. I'll take him something to eat, I repeated. But first tell me something, little boy. Are the dead hungry too? He looked surprised. What, don't you know? He exclaimed. Of course they are. And should we give them something to eat? How can you? Of course you should give them something to eat. It's only difficult. Difficult. The ghosts echoed together. The boy looked at me and smiled. I'll tell you a secret, he whispered. You know that at midnight the dead leave their graves, don't you? I told him that I knew. I had been told. Have you been told that they go from the graveyard to the synagogue? Yes, I had been told that also. Well, it's true, said the little boy. Then, after a silence which accentuated what was to follow, he went on in a voice so still that if it had not been inside myself, I could have never have heard it. Yes, it's true. They gather every night in the synagogue, but not for the purpose you imagine. They come not to pray, but to eat. Everything in the room, walls, chairs, heads, began to whirl around me, dancing in a pre-established rhythm without stirring the air or setting foot on the ground. I was the center of a multitude of circles. I wanted to close my eyes and stop up my ears, but my father was there, and my mother, and the master, and the beggar, and the boy, with all those who had formed me Around me, I had no right to stop up my ears and close my eyes. Give me those things, I said to Alana. I'll take them to him. The dancers stopped in their tracks, as if I were the conductor and my words were his baton. I stepped toward Alana, still standing at the kitchen door. Suddenly, Gad rushed forward and reached her side before me. I'll do it, he said. Almost brutally, he snatched the cup from the plate from Alana's hands and went precipitously down the stairs. Joab looked at his watch. It's after 2. Is that all? Asked Alana. It's a long night, the longest I've ever lived through. Yes, it's long, Joab agreed. Alana bit her lips. There are moments when I think it will never end, that it will last indefinitely. It's like the rain. Here, the rain, like everything else, suggests permanence and eternity. I say to myself, it's raining today, and it's going to rain tomorrow, and the next day, and the next week, and the next century. Now I say to myself, there's night now, there will be night tomorrow, and the next, and the day, the week, the century after. She paused abruptly and took a handkerchief from the cuff of her blouse and wiped her perspiring forehead. I wonder why it's so stuffy in here, she said, particularly this late at night. It will be cooler tomorrow, early tomorrow, promised Joab. I hope so, said Alana. What time does the sun rise? Around 5 o'clock. What time is it now? 2:20, said Joab, looking at his watch. Aren't you hot, Alicia? Yes, I am, I answered. Alana went back to her place at the table. I walked over to the window and looked out. The city seemed far away and unreal. Deep in sleep, it spawned anxious dreams, hopeful dreams, dreams which would proliferate other dreams on the morrow. And these dreams, in their turn, would engender new heroes who would live through the night and prepare to die at dawn, to die and give death. Yes, I'm hot, Alana, I said. I'm stifling. I don't know how long I stood, sweating beside the open window, before a warm, vibrant, reassuring hand was laid on my shoulder. It was Alana. What are you thinking? She said. I'm thinking of the night, I told her.